So I've been a player of The Division 2 since original beta in 2016, and I've been following its E3 teasers since about 2013. So it's obvious to me that the answer should be yes, absolutely. So that's it, video done. Thanks for watching, adios. Of course, if I'm going to convince anyone of, if they should spend their money on this game, I'm going to need a little bit more substance. Hey guys, BraxtonHD here, and welcome to a Division 2 video. It's been the first time saying that, first time of many hopefully. So thanks for the responses I've had on comments and DMs, though more the former. I've decided to take a crack at this particular video. So today we're going to be covering, as the title suggests, The Division 2 and its quality and promises as a game, and if it's worth you spending a dime on it. So here are a few cool things I'm going to be discussing. Number one, we have the current state of the game, both physically and conceptually. 2, the promises that we've been given, or some of them at least. 3, the cool things and upgrades from the first game and from concepts that we've been given. 4, gameplay, graphics and sounds, oh my. 5, we have the additions of the game, and 6, just a quick conclusion. And that should cover basically everything there is to know about The Division 2, and whether you should spend your money on it. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. So, number 1, state of the game. Now, obviously, what we have is a beta version. I do need to make that very clear before we start. It's a beta version of the end product, so it's not a finished product or it's not polished. However, we do get a very good idea as to what the game will feel and how it will play, as is the nature of basically any beta, or at least what it should be. The Division 2's beta is extremely well put together, has a lot of content to offer, and does exactly what a beta should. Of course, in this modern day and age, betas are also kind of a marketing technique, and that's something you can't really get away from. That definitely doesn't show too heavily in this version. Compared with other recent betas like Fallout 76, God forbid, and Anthem, The Division 2 is definitely the best performing, most appealing one I have played yet. All in all, the physical versions of the game we have now is very promising. They dare to even show some of the endgame content and difficulty. Some of these betas have not done something like that, so +1 for that. Conceptually speaking, being a sequel, all the bits are here already. We get stories, progression, loot, and a good representation of the world space, all things that we had in the Division 1 beta as well. And throughout the Division 1, obviously, so nothing new to expect there, really. The Radiant control point things that they've added, which is kind of a new thing, but I want to include it here. That seems well made, seems all well put together. Different gameplay loops as well, so things like doing missions, checking loot, crafting, doing more quests, doing more missions, is definitely there in the beta, so that's very useful. You can sort of test that out for yourself. All the things that Division 1 excelled at the first time around are here, like I just said. Gameplay loops, crafting was pretty decent, it's pretty good here as well, and even the Dark Zone feels pretty well made. But we'll get on to that in part 3. Now this is an interesting section of the video, part 3, promises we've been given and how they shape up. The endgame is a big set of promises we've been given that is like most of the stuff, the new stuff that we're seeing. Obviously all the old stuff is not really promises, things like gameplay and loot and stuff is not really promises because we've had that already in the Division 1, so I'm going to be talking about the endgame promises here. The new way specializations work, raids, stuff like that, that's all pretty big in the sort of promise front. From the endgame content that we actually have available, it does seem to be pretty challenging in the long run, and it has good variation that in the missions, while in the same location, have variations compared to the original mission in that location. We have things such as different routes through the map, different locations, different decor, stuff like that, which actually makes a difference compared with the sort of original mission in that same area. So we can't speak much for the raids, as we don't know too much about them. However, what we can say is there will be a decent amount of what Julian Garrity quoted as bespoke mechanics in an interview with him, and Matthias Carlson, I believe that is. We also have raids plural as well, so that's pretty decent. Hopefully we'll be seeing things like survival making a comeback, but that's not set in stone, that's just something they'd like to see happen. And another thing that was said during the interview is that we'll see some more unique exotics in terms of their design. Each weapon will have their own set of stats, obviously, but design and lore are two big things they're working on. Pretty similar to Destiny 2 in that regard, actually, because you have things like exotic weapons with different quests, for example, Whisper of the Worm in Destiny 2, as well as more cosmetics and character creation. We also have sort of tailored experiences, or at least passable ones for solo players, so it's not like unplayable hardcore experiences for solo players. They can still do some of the challenging activities solo. There are a lot more things promised, and hopefully we'll see these come to light. I personally have a lot of faith in Massive to deliver the amount of high-end content that we're looking for. They have said that they have designed this game with the end game in mind, something they did not do in the Division 1 because they were experimenting with the IP, they didn't know how big it was going to get, and it became the 9th most sold Xbox One game or something. So really well done. Or at the time at least, I'm not sure what it is now. But obviously they sort of suffered from success, and they had to sort of rethink all this stuff. So they're considering the end game a lot more than they are now, and that gives way to a lot more interesting possibilities in the future. Hopefully, they live up to their promises. Part 4 Upgrades. There are a lot of big changes and upgrades from the Division 1 which will massively help the game going forward. One such example of this is the new sort of meds and healing system that they're bringing in, which stops players being able to, chick and dance around when they're healing. It has a channel time, and you must stay static. The new armor is an additional health layer as opposed to a percentage of your health, and that means that players can no longer, sort of max all their toughness and just tank absolutely everything. Another thing is something that I really like, coupled with this system, is the amazing new way of tackling heavily armored enemies. So whereas before in the Division 1, enemies were constantly just more tough to kill the higher level they were, with more health, more armor, now we have a system where physical pieces of armor on the model of the sort of tank must be destroyed before we can actually deal damage to the health bar, which is really useful. Stops a massive complaint that many people had about the Division 1, which was the bullet sponges, and it removes that whole frustration from many players altogether. Also means that there'll be more promising tactics and strategies for taking out this armor later down the road, as opposed to holding down the left mouse button hoping something happens. So there is a gameplay sort of element to taking down this armor, which is useful. Another change from the Division 1 is the Dark Zone, how rogues are handled. So towards the end of the to the Division 1's lifespan, we had the sort of hold the button to go rogue, you have to manually toggle it, you can't just shoot somebody, which increased the sort of trust in the Dark Zone, I guess, a little bit. But it also meant that players who were looking to get into PvP were sort of frustrated that they had to hold down a button, which is, to each their own. So now we have 3 different tiers of rogue. We have the grey rogue, the red rogue, and the manhunt. I think the 2 first ones, the grey rogue and the red rogue, have names, but I'm not quite sure what they are, and I couldn't find anywhere that said what the names are. Anyway, this introduces a whole new level of mechanic via theft and greed. So players can greed locked containers and take the loot if they don't have a key, or steal items from other people's bodies as they used to be able to do, but this will actually trigger a grey rogue status, which is a sort of general untrustworthiness. You get the red rogue when you kill someone, you get the grey rogue when you do something a little bit dodgy. You can also secure that loot if you want to, which doesn't give you the grey rogue, and it just means that the player can go and pick up their stuff without anybody else being able to pick it up, which is, good guy stuff. The grey status can be dissolved by running around, obviously, running down the timer, or finding a safe house using a unique sort of triangulation sort of mini game in the Dark Zone called triangulating the position to Thieves' Den, or it's something along those lines. To find this location, you need to activate terminals and open loot crates, to sort of triangulate the entrance. You get a higher timer every time you do an activity, but when you get inside, it completely resets the timer, and it sets you back to normal Division affiliated mode, and you're all good. This is a great new mechanic level to the game, and to Dark Zone especially, as it rewards you with a decent amount of loot, as well as a higher risk. So, it's always about that risk versus reward. Do I want to kill someone and take the stuff, or do I just want to be a scumbag and take the stuff when they die? All in all, it's definitely a big step up from TD1's rogue system, which I really like. The mod system also got a big change. So mods have a sort of an element whether it's like damage, defense, or skill power, I guess. So you have a little crosshair, a little shield, and a little battery. So it's a sort of an element, I guess, which requires you to sort of have a certain amount of that to unlock things like skills on weapons and gear, instead of a sort of minimum main stat from the Division 1, such as your firearms, your stamina, and your electronics. Weapon mods are also static stats, so you get those via unlocking perks or from doing crafting and doing missions to unlock them and stuff, but they have as fixed values, so each mod will have like one pro and one con to it, so it's not random rolled anymore. I'd say this new mod system is pretty good. Makes the game a little bit simpler, which, you know, can be bad, can be good. I think the lack of random rolled weapon mods is interesting, which is sort of code for we'll see how it goes. It does remove a level of min-maxing that was important in TD1. Getting the most out of your mods and your weapons was a sort of big, not time waster, but a big way of using your time in the game. So how this system plays out, we'll have to sort of establish when the game launches. But I think it'll be interesting to see sort of different builds, and it removes sort of a level of complexity with those builds, so you can focus more on the gear that you want and less on the mods that you have on it, which is, you know, pretty useful. In the Division 1, graphics were amazing. They were a real depiction of New York City, really good detail, and had amazing features such as, you know, immersive broken glass, footprints, and closing car doors. In this game, we yet again have a beautiful remake of DC in all its glory, with all doors open, and with believable enemies to boot as well, so the design is really good in this game. What's even more impressive is the sound design, while I can't find a good depiction in my footage. Rest assured that the addition of reverb and echoes in tight spaces and weapon sounds really good. One thing that should be improved on though is the small drones and the sort of Hot Wheel cars with bombs strapped to the back, hence Hot Wheels, that the game sort of deploys at you through the enemies, which seem to have a barely noticeable sound effect and can cause frustration. Gameplay wise, it feels very similar to a lot of looter shooters as you'd expect. There was not much change from TD1 in terms of the gameplay flow. You go to A, you ice some fools, you go to B, press a button or kill some more fools. Pretty much it, you know, you take cover, you shoot, you deploy a skill, stuff like that. There's a boss at the end, you know, pretty standard stuff. However, the inclusion of skills, of course, can't really say too much about it, because there were skills in TD1, but skills are good in this game. They've had a sort of a rework, and you have different mods and different types of skills. There's two new ones which we can't actually see yet. We can't use them in the beta, but they're pretty decent. They appear to be anyway. And, you know, it takes a standard mission, it makes it 3D, you can do some different things with it. Skills are skills, really. All this praise comes with a downturn, however, as the new method on some skills of having to manually choose targets and fire is not a valid way of doing it, in my opinion. Certain skills and variations of skills, such as the sniper turret, the roller mines, seeker mines, and drones require you to have to look at an enemy to sort of mark them, and then you have to hit the button again to activate the weapon or what have you, and by which point you could have easily killed them already. So it's kind of pointless, really. This is not how these skills should work, and actually does make skills, like using skills, a key feature of the Division, not worth it. You would rather be better off using things like utility skills, in my opinion. Other skills though, such as Pulse, Cam Launcher, stuff like that, which I said are not in. All we have at the minute is the drone, the turret, and the seeker mine. So bear that in mind. This is not a complete overview, but we do have to review what we have in front of us, and what we have in front of us is not a good use of skills. As a solution, I think each skill should require, or each skill that requires you to manually fire your weapon, should be replaced with just having the target system, so hitting Q to sort of lock into a target, and have auto fire then, such that you can sort of take your attention off that enemy onto someone else while your turret or whatever mops up the other guy. I guess this is what happens with the auto turret, and it is in the game. So the auto turret will just lock onto an enemy and start shooting. You can also assign a priority enemy using Q. But not the sniper turret and some other drones, which leads me to believe this was either a balancing method for the high power ones, or it was sort of an oversight in design. I think they definitely need to address this. Now to talk about your actual money. First thing you have to do is, if you want to know if you want to buy this game, is ask yourself, what is it worth? I pre-ordered the Dark Zone edition, something I rarely do. Out of my opinion, that the game looks very, very promising, and being a TD1 player since day zero, I really enjoyed the game, though taking breaks in between probably helped with burnout. So the real stickler for me was whether or not to buy the Year 1 pass, which reportedly only contains cosmetics and 7-day access to the beta, but that's free to all players anyway, so there's not really much point in that in my opinion. The standard edition is about £50, $49.99. The gold is $83.99. The ultimate and dark zone are about 100. I think the ultimate is 92, and the dark zone is 99.99. And the Phoenix Shield is a whopping £215 sterling. If you're looking for just the pass and the game with a pre-order bonus and early access about 3 days, so you get it on the 12th, not the 15th, the gold edition is your guy. But if you want to spend some more on the Dark Zone or Ultimate editions, consider if you value a physical 30cm statue and some extra physical goods like a book of lithographs and the soundtrack, over digital goods like just pre-order bonuses and skin packs, stuff like that, as well as the Year 1 pass included with the Ultimate edition. I don't often encourage people to pre-order the game without at least playing the beta, so if you haven't experienced it or you're on the edge and you're not sure if the game is truly for you, I would suggest you wait until reviews. This is not a review per se, this is if it's worth your money as a pre-order, so just weigh that up and decide if it's the right game for you. And after 7 audio files recorded, 2,000 words, 3 pages, I'd like to say this. The Division 2 is great, but it is flawed in some departments, especially the skills. And at least from what we have right now, it's in an unfinished state in that department. There's a whole month and a bit to fix bugs and connection issues, which is more than any other recent beta combined. In my honest opinion, just due to Ubisoft's track record, which this game has slightly subverted actually, and due to the very wise words of the community, especially PC gaming community, try before you buy. Don't pre-order this game if you don't enjoy what you've seen of it or played of it, and if it wasn't for sort of how much I played the Division 1 and how much I've enjoyed playing the beta and how I guess nostalgic I've been about this game and its early release, I wouldn't have spent a dime on it, so just keep that in mind. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed the video. It took a while to make this video considering I don't really make long videos like this. About an hour to script, about an hour to sort of record and edit. So if you did, please consider liking the video, dropping a line in my comments. If you're new, consider dropping a sub, turning notifications on with that bell, as well as checking out my Twitch and Discord channels, bam bam. And that's about it, that's all I got. Thank you very much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.